All right, let's dive into one of the oldest and honestly most powerful forms in all of English literature, the ballad. It's this amazing mix of story and song, and for hundreds of years it was the way people shared their biggest, most dramatic tales.
So let me start with a question for you. What in the world could possibly connect an old legend about Robin Hood, being sung in some medieval tavern, with that pop song you just heard on the radio? It seems like they're worlds apart, right?
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. They're both story songs, and that powerful, timeless blend of a great story and a catchy tune, that is the absolute heart and soul of the ballad. So here's the journey we're going to take today. We'll start at the very beginning with the original story songs. Then we'll break down the anatomy of a ballad. What makes it tick. We'll follow its path from just a voice to a printed page, see how famous poets totally revived the form, and finally, we'll get into why this ancient form still echoes today.
Okay, first up, let's rewind. I mean, way back. Before printing presses, before most people could even read. How did you share your history, your legends, your biggest news stories? Well, you sang them. These first ballads popped up across medieval England, Scotland, and Ireland. And what's so wild is that they didn't have authors. Not in the way we think of one, anyway. They were communal creations, passed from person to person, generation to generation, probably changing a little bit with every performance. They were literally the living memory of a community, part entertainment, part history lesson.
So if you were hanging out back then, how would you know you were listening to a ballad? Well, it turns out there was a kind of formula, a recipe for the perfect story song that was surprisingly consistent.
At its core, a ballad is just a story told in verse, designed to be performed out loud. And the key words here are concise, dramatic, and rhythmic. It's all about getting right to the action, building up that tension, and using a rhythm that just, sticks in your head, that made it super easy to remember and pass on to the next person. And that recipe had some really specific ingredients. You had these tight, four-line stanzas, a simple rhyme scheme that made it easy to sing. The language wasn't fancy, it was direct, focusing on action and what people said. And repetition was huge. A repeated line or refrain wasn't just for drama, it was a memory tool. The themes, they were always the big ones. Love, death, heroes, and of course, ghosts and magic. For centuries, the ballad existed only on the breath of singers. But then, a new technology comes along, the printing press, and it was about to change everything, taking this folk art and turning it into something totally new. You can really see the ballad's evolution right here. It starts as this anonymous oral folk song. Then, boom, the Renaissance hits, and people start printing ballads on these cheap single sheets of paper called broadsheets. They'd sell them on the street, covering everything from crime to politics. It was basically the 16th century version of breaking news. And then, later, in the Romantic period, famous poets looked back at this rustic old form and thought, hey, we can do something really artistic with this. So this whole journey created two very different kinds of ballads. You've got your traditional folk ballads, like the classic Barbara Allen, no known author, super simple, born from the voice of a whole community. And then you have the literary ballads, like Coleridge's epic, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Here you have a famous author carefully crafting a complex piece of art that explores some really deep psychological stuff. So let's zoom in on that last stage of the journey, that moment when the literary superstars of the Romantic era rediscovered the ballad and decided to make it their own. See, these Romantic poets were kind of rebelling against the really formal, stiff poetry that came before them. They were looking for something more raw, more emotional, more real. And they found it in these old folk ballads. They just loved the raw storytelling, the natural musical rhythm, and that connection to everyday people. And they used the form in some absolutely revolutionary ways. I mean, look at Coleridge. He takes that classic ballad structure, the four-line stanzas, the rhythm, the dramatic story, and uses it to tell this wild, supernatural ghost story that's also this incredibly deep dive into guilt and redemption. It feels like an ancient legend, but it has the psychological depth of a modern novel. It's brilliant. William Wordsworth did something just as cool. He took the ballad's simple, direct language for his famous Lucy poems. Now, on the surface, they seem like just simple little songs about a girl who lived out in the country, but that simplicity is the whole point. He uses it to express these incredibly powerful, heartbreaking feelings about love, memory, and loss. It just goes to show you how versatile this form could be.
So, from a medieval campfire to the pages of the great Romantic poets, the ballad has had a pretty incredible life. But what's the big takeaway? Why does any of this still matter today?
Well, its legacy is huge. It acted as a library for a world without books, holding on to culture and memory. It was an early newspaper, spreading the latest stories on broadsheets. It gave some of our greatest writers a powerful tool for exploring human emotion. And maybe most importantly, its DNA, that perfect mix of story and song, is completely alive and well today in the folk, country, and pop music we all listen to. If there's one thing we've learned, it's that the ballad is a survivor. It's always adapted to new technologies and new audiences, from the human voice to the printing press to the digital stream. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. What comes next? What will the story songs of the future sound like?